When Cherry Blossoms Whisper. Volume 2, Summer's Fragile Heart. Chapter 2, Kaito's Love Disaster. The day after the beach cleanup, the heat of the summer sun was unrelenting. Haruto and his friends were back at school, but summer had taken over everything. The halls, usually bustling with the hum of schoolwork, now felt like a distant memory as students prepared for their summer breaks. Yet, there was no rest for the student council members who had just wrapped up a grueling meeting about the festival preparations. It was late afternoon when Haruto found himself sitting on the edge of the school's rooftop, sketchbook in hand, the cool breeze doing little to calm his simmering thoughts. His encounter with Sakura at the beach had left him unsettled, but he hadn't pushed her. For now, he would respect her space. His attention shifted as he heard a familiar, chaotic voice from below. Haruto! Haruto! Kaito's voice rang out loud and unmistakable. Haruto glanced down to see his childhood friend sprinting up the stairs, his face flushed with excitement. Kaito's energy had been impossible to contain ever since he'd learned about his crush on Rin, the sharp-tongued girl from the literature club who also happened to be Sakura's rival. Haruto had always found Kaito's antics amusing, but lately the chaos seemed more like a cover-up for something deeper. Kaito had always been a bit of a mystery when it came to love. What's up? Haruto asked, putting his sketchbook down and leaning back against the wall. Kaito took the last few steps two at a time, his breath heavy from running. I need your help, man, he panted, looking around as though someone might be eavesdropping. I've got this romantic idea, and I need your expertise. Haruto raised an eyebrow. Romantic? You're going to need more than my expertise for that. Kaito grinned, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. I'm going to confess to Rin. Haruto didn't respond right away, waiting for Kaito to explain further. Confessing to Rin, huh? That was bold. And risky. Rin could be icy at the best of times, so Kaito's love confession would either be a disaster or a triumph. Okay, so what's the plan? Haruto asked, leaning forward now. He knew this was going to be good or terrible. All right, get this, Kaito said, eyes sparkling. I'm going to do it in front of the whole school. And I've written a poem for her. A ramen-themed poem. Haruto blinked, unsure whether to laugh or cringe. A ramen poem? Yeah. You know Rin loves literature, so it'll be, like, poetic and unique. I thought, what better way to show her my feelings than with something she's passionate about? Food. Literature. It's perfect. Kaito's enthusiasm was practically overflowing, but Haruto couldn't help but feel concerned. That's one way to put it. Haruto's voice was dry. Are you sure this is a good idea? Rin's, well, she's not exactly the romantic type. Kaito waved his concern away with a dismissive gesture. Nonsense. I've got this in the bag. A little ramen poetry and she'll be all over me. Haruto smirked. You sure you're not setting yourself up for a disaster? Kaito paused for a moment as if considering the possibility. Well, maybe. But you know what? I've got to try. Otherwise, I'll never know, right? Haruto couldn't argue with that logic. All right then. If you're really going through with it, I'll help. But I think you should make sure you're ready for anything. Kaito gave a dramatic salute. Thanks, Haruto. You're the best. The next day, the student council room was filled with chaos. The final preparations for the summer festival were underway, but Kaito's mind was clearly elsewhere. He couldn't stop fidgeting with his phone, checking and rechecking his poem. The tension was palpable, especially for Haruto, who could sense the brewing disaster waiting to happen. The festival was fast approaching, and with it, Kaito's impending confession. He had gone to great lengths, creating the perfect ramen-themed poem that he was sure would win Rin's heart. The question, however, was whether Rin was even the slightest bit interested. Haruto wasn't sure, but one thing was certain. Kaito had put himself out there in a way that most people wouldn't dare. By lunchtime, everyone had gathered in the courtyard, where Kaito had planned his dramatic confession. Rin, as expected, was sitting with her usual group, quiet and observant, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd. Haruto watched from the sidelines, a little worried, but also a little entertained. This was going to be something. Kaito stood at the front of the courtyard, holding a small piece of paper. He cleared his throat loudly, grabbing everyone's attention. Attention, everyone! He bellowed, his voice echoing across the courtyard. I have an important confession to make. The students fell silent, curious to see what Kaito was up to now. Rin looked up from her book, eyebrows raised in surprise. Kaito took a deep breath and began reading his poem with dramatic flair. Ramen. Oh ramen, your noodles so fine. With broth so rich, I think you're divine. But it's you, Rin, that I want by my side. Together we'll slurp and together we'll glide. There was a moment of stunned silence before the courtyard erupted into laughter. Some students clapped while others snickered behind their hands. Rin's face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and disbelief. Haruto could barely contain his laughter watching Kaito stand there, unfazed by the commotion. But then something unexpected happened. Rin stood up, a slight blush on her cheeks. Her expression was a mix of frustration and something else, maybe embarrassment or maybe even curiosity. Rin began, looking at Kaito with a scowl, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Kaito didn't seem to mind the teasing. In fact, he grinned wider, unfazed by the rejection. I know it's not perfect, but I had to try. Rin's gaze softened just a little as she crossed her arms. You're insane, but it was funny. Kaito's grin grew wider. So, that's a yes, right? Rin shook her head with a chuckle, but her lips twitched upward in a reluctant smile. You're an idiot, Kaito. But I guess you've got guts. I'll give you that. The tension in the air eased as the students around them began to laugh, the awkwardness fading away into lighthearted amusement. Thanks for watching our video. If you find this video interesting, then please subscribe our YouTube channel. If you're watching this video from TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram, then follow our page for more contents like this.